Everybody, welcome back. Live at Drew's House, Joppa Afternoon Drive. Hope we are all doing well out there, ready to launch into summer and summer weather and all that good stuff. We have a lot to talk about in the sports world, and with that, I am thrilled to bring on a return guest, Bill Burt, the executive sports editor at the Eagle Tribune. He's been on pretty much any time we get a lot going on in the sports world. I ask Bill if he can come on the show. So how are you, my man?
Very good, very good, very exciting. A lot. You know, it's funny. Obviously, the big trade, and it was. It got my juices flowing. You know, I'm
baseball juices. Yes.
Yeah, just sort of juices. Yeah. No, it was like it was a. I don't want to say fun. I don't know, exciting. It was exhilarating.
Yeah.
The trade. It's sort of, in my opinion, the Devers trade sort of showed us where we are as a country. Because I say politically, everything is half and half.
Yep.
Half hate it, half love it, and that's really in all our lives right now. Name an issue, and it's half and half. I think
a lot of people were surprised at how many people were just fine with letting him go, because I do think people they don't respect not being a team player around here, right? And he didn't want to pick up the glove, and for a lot of people that was it.
Right. So the biggest issue with the Red Sox...
Rafael Devers, of course. I'm not even sure if we said that.
We're talking about the Rafael Devers trade. Sure.
We don't even need to say it anymore.
The biggest issue with the Red Sox and Craig Breslow, who's now been in just over a year, is the Mookie Betts trade is still lingering. And the mistakes they've made, and we can even go back before that with the letting John Lester go, and then bringing in David Price when it was more of a reaction. A year later, everything seems to be a reaction.
Sure.
You make a bad decision, and then not react, overreact, and make decisions you probably shouldn't have made. The Betts deal was a mistake.
Yeah.
Epic. And they could have signed him, and then immediately after that, came due Xander Bogaerts' contract. So Xander Bogaerts' contract was in December of 22.
Yeah.
And they basically made the decision they weren't going to sign him, and so San Diego comes in, gives him close to $27 million per year. Red Sox are paying him $20 million per year, and he's gone. So then Betts is gone. The leader of the team, Bogaerts is gone, and now guess who's up? He's a year before his contract, Rafael Devers, and they pay him basically $30+ million, 29 I think is the ultimate average per year.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, it was an overreaction, because you pay people like that when you pay someone like that, you're saying he's our best player, and also probably going to ascend to a leadership role.
Yes.
And as I think the Red Sox hoped that would happen, he had never been a leader beforehand. I mean, his best time here was when Bogaerts was sort of, no, go over here. This is how you practice. This is how we play. You'd see them a lot in spring training, because I went down to spring training every year for about a week.
Yeah, he always got heat for being out of shape in spring training, didn't he?
Yeah, and this year, same thing. It's like, and my biggest issue with Devers was his defense never got better. Yeah. Arguably, it got worse. And I can go back to Wade Boggs, someone who I grew up with, who came into the league is probably was a below average third baseman. Great hitter. Won 2 Gold Gloves last, both years here in Boston, 2 of his final years. He committed to defense, and Devers never did. And then you have the lack of leadership role. So now there's a team that's best player, and when I say player, best hitter.
Yep.
But what I also will say, and I think if Devers was more of a top 2 or 3 MVP guy, let's say he's not Aaron Judge, but he's maybe a level below that, I think you put up with this.
Yeah.
He was more of an 11th, 12th. He never finished higher than 11th in the American League MVP.
Yep. Pretty streaky.
Not saying he's a bum, but but 11th isn't 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Right.
And so then you, at some point, you accept some drama with superstars. We see it in the NFL with the diva wide receivers. You accept it from the players that perform and win.
Yep.
And they never really got that with him. So then what happens, the team is, like, I was down there in spring training, there was a vibe that I hadn't felt with this team for 4 or 5 years, maybe even go back to the 2018 team. And it was Bregman. It was, they just traded for Crochet. Well, they traded for Crochet in December.
Yep.
But the 3 young prospects, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Christian Campbell, you sense these are not good players, potentially good players. They're all potentially great. Now, that's tough call, but there's something special about all 3 of them. So it was like, whoa, the future of this team is bright. And they got Bregman, who wants to be here. You got Crochet, who's a stud, and he was a stud. Has had arm issues, but unhittable when he's on. And he was unhittable his last year, which was a sort of a murky year with the White Sox. So the thing is, Devers ended up, I'm going to wrap this up simply, he wasn't worth the drama and the good vibes with this team going forward. When you get 3 young players, 3 potential staples, and then they're going to see this sort of stuff going on behind the scenes, it's not good. And I think they wanted to end it, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and I mean, you're a baseball guy. Your son's been playing
Still
for how many years now?
Still grinding since 2018.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the one thing that's jumped out at me about all this. It doesn't really seem like the team is like, I can't believe we did that. That's our rock. There's been none of that.
No.
And it's some of those guys. Baseball's a weird sport. You got to show up every day. It's not football where you can deal with on a Sunday and like the wide receiver makes his plays and go, that's why we live with that. Baseball is every single day. There's personalities. You're living with these people. It's family.
There's nothing like baseball, and so for me, covering football is sort of my sort of favorite sport, and it's my favorite because it's easier. It's sort of cookie cutter, and I don't mean to take the easy way out, but it's Sunday you play, you talk to people after the game. Monday you talk about the game, and then Tuesday you move on to the next week. Unless you got some big game coming up the next weekend, but. Baseball is a grind. It's not only a grind to play, it's a grind to cover. They're in every day at 3. They leave at midnight. And it's tiring. Someone said the Boston media marriage divorce rate is as high as it is with athletes and coaches.
Wow.
Because it's a tough job. And in Boston, you're talking 25 to 30 people there every day. You're competing with them. They're your buddies, sort of, but you're competing with them. So it's a grind covering Major League Baseball. It's 6 full months, 7 if you got a good team, and it's exciting. It has its moments, but it has a lot of dead time. I will say the access to players in baseball, there's nothing like it. You don't have it in any other sport. I'd say hockey might be the closest, but baseball is every day. 2 hours before a game, you can talk to a guy. When there's other players, I remember Mike Lowell would say, once batting practice hits, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm in baseball mode. But for the most part, everyone else, you get them at their locker an hour and a half before the game, get them in the dugout, sit down, they'll talk. There's nothing like baseball, but it's hard.
That's a good little inside baseball story, actually, from you. Did you used to go into covering our Red Sox? If you had a story, would you go in with a story idea, or did many times you come out and say, I stumbled upon a story just because I talked with whoever for 10 minutes?
This is my journalism lesson, sports journalism specifically, but no, journalism. I try to go in, even to an NFL game. I go into a game, an event, with a story idea. This is what I'm going to do. And I sort of do a little research beforehand, and I sort of get my eggs in an order, and then I figure out how, then all of a sudden the game happens. And I'll go football. And I have my story, but then all of a sudden my story's sort of dead. 3 other bigger things, better things happened. And I'm not into games. I'm more into the people. So I'm more looking at the big play, the defining moment. I'm a big defining moment person and play and game guy. And so I go in with the story idea, and it's a good one, I think. And then all of a sudden something better happens. Then you go to that one. It's like it's a transition. I got a better story than the one I planned to write, so it should be easier to write. In my opinion, that helped me a lot with writer's block. Writer's block, We all struggle. Every single writer, for the most part.
Yeah.
But if you have if you plan things out and then something else happens, it's better. It's sort of the writer's block isn't there. So
Yeah.
I take that with me usually every game. Fenway, I like to do my stuff before the game. So I don't really focus on the game. If I go to a Red Sox game, I'm commenting on the game while it's going on. I'm on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. I'm not a big social media guy. I don't know much about InstaFace and all that other stuff.
You do all right.
I do all right, but I'm Instagram and there's I don't understand the stories. They disappear. That's for you kids. But I enjoy the people stories, the personal stories, and I try to get that. I try to get there before a game with a focus of talking to someone about something.
That is well said. Very good. Again, we're joined here by Bill Burt, executive sports editor at the Eagle Tribune. We'll talk about he's marking a milestone here this year too, which is exciting. But on that regard, you had a great story idea that we were just talking about before you came on. But what was it, a week and a half ago? You caught up with Ray Bourque, and of course Brad Marchand and the Florida Panthers have a chance to win the Stanley Cup tonight.
Yes.
And you that was a really cool story idea. Why don't you tell people what you do?
By the way, Brad may win the MVP Conn Smythe Award as the MVP.
Yeah.
So when the trade happened, I texted Ray Bourque, who I'll say I contact him twice a year for stories, and he gets back to me. We get along. He comes to I live in North Andover. He's at Butcher Boy. I run into him once in a while. He on his way home he's got a couple places. He's very busy. He's got his foundation. He's got 2 or 3 restaurants. But he always he's a regular guy. He goes for Dunkin' Donuts coffee. He goes to Butcher Boy, gets his steaks and chicken for the family. So I had contacted him and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you because it was a similar story of a guy, longtime Bruin, successful Bruin, captain-ish, and leaving to win. And so he said, I'm not ready to do this yet. I want to let it play out. I want to talk to him. So I said, fine. And I literally did not talk to Ray or contact him about it until about 2 days before the finals were starting, the Stanley Cup finals. And I said, hey, okay. I'm ready. Are you ready? I'd just like to talk to you briefly about Brad. And he said, we set it up, call me in 10 minutes. So he was in the car going to golf.
Yep.
And it was great. And you know what happened? I saw he was on Julian Edelman's podcast, which is one of the best in the business.
Yeah.
And talking about the Cup and the mayor calling his agent and then Brad, the agent calling Mike O'Connell and saying they want to honor Ray with the Cup at City Hall, and Mike O'Connell said we're okay with it. Yeah, and I didn't even know that story. So Ray told that story, and
Ray told that on here first, just so you know. He did. Yeah.
Okay.
During COVID, I said, hey, I beat him on that story.
So the story was, I wanted a little more, because it was very similar. Now, Ray had not won a cup, but very similar stories. The Bruins went from great runs. I mean, look, it's not like Ray's career here in Boston in terms of winning was void. They went to 3 cups, I think, or 2 cups.
Yeah.
Back, played Edmonton a couple times, made it to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 or 3 other times. So, but the Bruins had basically fallen to what the Bruins are today. Mm-hmm. And he called Harry and said, Harry, I want to win. I want to go somewhere. He wanted to go to Philadelphia. He knew a couple of guys there. They were close. They were a year before. I think they made it. They made it to the Eastern Conference semis.
Logistically, a little easier.
Yes, and what happened was, and Ray told the story on the podcast. Yeah. Celine Dion's husband, who was connected to the Colorado Avalanche owner, they were best friends, had called Ray. He called Ray, and they knew each other. From I guess famous people run into each other in different circles and events, charity events. And he said, "Are you looking at getting traded?" And he said, "Well, we're thinking about it." Lo and behold, the Colorado Avalanche got involved, and bang, a deal was made.
Wow!
And so he goes there. And he said it ended up being the best experience of his career.
Yeah.
It would have been better winning that in Boston. I did a column on him couple of years ago, basically said he still hasn't gotten over that regret not winning a cup. But that being said, this story with Marchand. Now Marchand had won, had been to 2 other finals, probably should have won 3 cups. Let's be honest. And let's be honest, the best Bruins team ever was probably 3 years ago when they lost in the first round to the Panthers.
Yeah,
that team was loaded.
It was,
and so the team basically had fallen apart. He could have stayed. He could have signed a 4-year deal and remained captain and been a leader because he was beloved here.
Yes.
I mean, he was our rat. He was a rat, but he was our rat.
Yeah.
And so basically he was in the same place, and I think him and Bork had contacted each other, and I heard rumblings of that. And then he basically said, no, it was more like the contract fell apart, and then, okay, we're going to trade you somewhere. And they basically, I think one of the teams he wanted to go to was Florida. And so, they basically gave in, meaning, you've been a great, worthy player here. We, appreciate everything you've done. We're gonna go try to get you to Florida. So Florida makes the deal. First round pick, second round pick, first round pick if they win 2 rounds. So now it's a first round pick, but it's going to be the last pick of the first round. So it's basically a second round pick still. But that being said, he said, I have never been more happier for a player. So how we felt about Ray Bork feels about Marchand. He deserves it. He's been through it all. He's been the ultimate Bruin, and I couldn't be happier. We've texted back and forth. He goes, I'm not saying we got these, I'm texting him every day, but when something happens or I want to give him a boost, I'll throw him a note. He sends it back. He's asked a couple questions throughout this whole process while he's been with the Florida Panthers. So it's a great story. Now, I didn't know it was that great. I knew it would be a good parallel, and it was. And now it looks like he's going to win a cup.
Crazy.
And, if you remember, Joe Sakic, took the cup and immediately gave it to Bork because everyone knew how important that was. And I'm assuming something like that's going to happen. I'm assuming something that's going to happen if Marchand's going to be MVP.
He's crazy.
If they win tonight, he's MVP.
Yeah.
But he's outplayed everyone. Perfect situation. He didn't have to go to Florida and be the star. He's a 3rd-line guy. Now, he's playing on the power play. He also plays some penalty kill. But it was a situation where he just got to be himself, and he didn't have to be something bigger or better. With the Bruins, they needed him to be their best player, and he wasn't anymore. So this situation could not have been more perfect for a player.
And that doesn't happen, especially in hockey, really, if you think about it, when you trade your captain away. I mean, it just doesn't happen that often, never mind to a team that might end up winning the Stanley Cup. Those are 2 very unique situations. Bork goes and Marchand goes.
Yeah, and look, credit to the Bruins that you could say they should have signed him to given him whatever he wanted, or maybe a little less, 3 or 4 years, retire a Bruin. No, this is better. This is better. And Bork said, and because it suits with him as well, Brad Marchand's always going to be a Bruin. So the rest of his life, he goes, I would be shocked if he doesn't live here with his family and raise his family here just like Ray did. This sort of had to happen, and couldn't be happier.
It's funny. I remember being at the Bork Foundation event, which was I forget where that falls in the calendar, but it was like not long after Brad Marchand was named captain. The Bruins were certainly getting ready to get going, and the Bruins all come to that event to show support for a legendary Bruin, and Marchand was there, and Ray clearly went out of his way to say so many good things, because you were hearing a lot of chatter about really the rat is going to be the captain. This is not the respected Patrice Bergeron so much, and like Ray's words I think meant a lot to Marchand, because this is the perfect guy. I cannot tell you the character behind this man. Just could not stop saying great things about him. I think a lot of people that night were like, wow, Ray really went out on a limb for Marchand.
From afar he's a rat, and we know he's our rat, but he was the most respected player on the team. I mean, he blood, sweat, tears for the Bruins, always has, and fights. He'll go after. He's an instigator. I mean, let's be honest, we hate instigators, but we love them when they're ours. And so it's that story I sort of saw happening.
Yeah.
It's sort of like stories that I plan on doing. I put it in the bank, and then it just sort of happens. And Ray was great, and he always is. Ray Bork, and you've talked to him before. You've broken stories from Ray. I put him up there as maybe number one Bruin of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking Milt Schmidt. We're talking Bobby Orr. I might have Ray Bork there. I think underrated, because Bobby Orr, and don't get me wrong, I know Bobby through Russ Conway. Russ Conway and him were best buddies. Bobby Orr did a lot. I mean, I think he gave me 20 signed sticks for charities. Like I once, great story, I drove out, I needed a stick for an event, and I had to meet him at Weston Country Club at 7 a.m. on the golf range. Yeah. And he's hitting balls. I bring 2 sticks. He signed them.
Oh,
Thank you.
awesome,
and I left. And that's the kind of stuff he did. Ray Bork is, he's here. He's a little more public than Bobby has been. And I don't want to say rarely says no, but he rarely says no. And he's a very busy guy. He's got very successful, and I got him as the number one Bruin of all time.
Well, he's got the longevity too. With the Orr career was considerably shorter, right?
Yeah,
injuries and
Orr to me he was my favorite athlete growing up.
Yep.
And then I got to college. Larry Bird sort of became that guy. Red Sox, Yastrzemski, I got him early. I'm born in '61. I loved Havlicek. Those guys I love. Bobby Orr, Phil Esposito, that team, I cry. I mean, I'd be 11, 10, 12, 11, 13 crying when they lost games. And my dad would let me stay up from school, watch the West Coast games, and I did. And so the Bruins, it's funny because I've covered all the teams, not really covered the Bruins per se as much. We've always had hockey writers, Russ Conway. I did a lot of I've covered the Patriots since '91. Yeah. Just connected with Bill Parcells. I'm going to do a big thing on him before he goes into the Hall of Fame. I'm on the Patriots Hall of Fame committee, and I was the, I don't want to say I was the only one, but every year for like 3 or 4 years, I stood up to recommend Bill Parcells, and I had to battle the young people didn't really understand. 4 years, Pete Carroll had a better record. No, Bill Parcells changed this. Talk about culture. Yeah. We don't even know who Bill Belichick is if Bill Parcells never comes here. And so,
how's he doing, by the way? Is he he's kind of out of the limelight, so.
Yeah, you're talking Parcells.
Yeah,
Parcells is he lives at Saratoga in the summer, and then goes to Jupiter, Florida in the winter. And he's going in the Hall of Fame. It's September. I'm not sure.
It's their big night there.
It's going to be before Patriots home game. It's like on a Friday. But I want to do something special. So I've written about it when he got nominated. It's funny because I would get in contact with him, and he said, "Stop nominating me. I'm not going in."
Really?
Yeah. He was adamant. And him and Kraft, I got to give Bob Kraft credit. There were issues. I mean, look, they're both in their 80s. I mean, cut the bleep. Yeah. And let's get over. Yeah, he made some bad decisions. Kraft made some tough decisions too that weren't he'd probably do different. But the two, Kraft, again, I give him a ton of credit because it was on him. He's the one that said Bill's going in. And, it was like, I think what happened was he kept making the top 3 list. Like 3 out of 4 years, Parcells made the list that goes out to the public. And it was like, I think Kraft saying, Bob Kraft saying, we're going to have to deal with this another 2 or 3 years. Let bygones be bygones. And so they mended their fence, thankfully. They're in their mid-80s. Bill Parcells belongs in the Patriots Hall of Fame. I've been on the committee. It's one of the great honors I've had in this business is being on that committee for about 15 plus years or whatever since it started. And it's him going in with Julian Edelman. Initially it was supposed to be Adam Vinatieri, we thought. But, in fact, that was a big topic of discussion, not to go off on a tangent here. Yeah. Well, in the nomination process, when people were talking about, if Julian Edelman is on the final 3, then Adam Vinatieri is not going to go in. And I said, I don't know about that. But if Julian Edelman goes in over Vinatieri, who I believe should go in before him, but if people think otherwise, because I believe Edelman's a pro football Hall of Famer, some time. It's probably going to take a while, but people were worried that it was going to be a recency bias with Edelman. But I said, if they think Edelman deserves it over Vinatieri, it's fine. Vinatieri's going to get in. Now, the only issue is next year Gronk is up, and I'm sorry, Vinatieri, you're going to have to wait another year. Now we're talking the second tier Super Bowl guys are all being mentioned. So, but look, the things I'm talking, Ray Bork, Patriots Hall of Fame, Bill Parcells. I'm very lucky, very, very lucky in this business. Dealt with a lot of important people, inspiring people, and I've written a lot of stories, a lot of fun stories.
I know you still love it because we talked, you told me right as we walked in here, you got, this is 40 years for you now.
40.
Huh?
40 this summer in August, yes.
Unbelievable. That's
40 years.
What a run in this business. You must look back at it and go, wow, I can't, it all probably happened fast for you? I don't know.
Yeah, it's, there was tiers to it. So for, the first 6, 7, 8 years, I was a big local sports guy, and Friday and Saturday nights, today, you can't hire anyone. You got to work Friday and Saturday nights. I don't want the job. Back then, you basically, you had to earn your stripes. Yeah. The difference today is there's so many options available, social media. Yeah. Because I was not a good writer. In fact, I'll say subpar writer. I got in the business because I love sports, and I had one editor. We won 2 Pulitzer Prizes. We almost won 2 more. Russ Conway should have won one in hockey, but the editor that did all of the content editing for those is the guy that sort of got me to realize I like this business, and I can be pretty good if I put in the work. Read more. Write more, and organize your thoughts in pressure-packed situations, and that's why I feel. Look, if after doing this for 20 years, I probably could have gone into something else based on the quick thinking you have to do here on deadline. I mean, I've written thousands of stories on deadline. I get 10 minutes to get it in. You don't have a lot of time to screw around, so you better think fast. So, but 40 years, has it gone by fast? Well, the one thing it allowed me, off to the side a little, I have one son, and I was able to coach him and watch every basic sporting event. I'm sort of a helicopter dad, by the way.
Because the odd hours, you mean? Or?
Yeah, just at the beginning, and then when I became sports editor in '99, my son's 3 then, and I got to sort of, flex my schedule a little bit. I had a great staff. I still do. And so I was able to, that was very important. Family is more important than my job. I love my job, but my family is number one. It always will be. And more fun. My son played at Northeastern. That to me was the best experience. That's where it was about winning. Here we're worried about stats in the minors. We're worried about it's all about winning. We traveled. We met a lot of great parents. We're still connected to 2 or 3 groups of parents. One in New Orleans. So that to me was the best part of being a dad to an athlete. Were all the places I've been, all the people I've met, and people go, what about your career? Now the career is great, but that to me, nothing like flying into Charleston, South Carolina on a Friday morning, and it's 80 degrees. It's 42 back in Boston, and getting together with some parents, having a couple beers, baseball game before the game, and so I had a lot of fun with that. But 40 years. In essence, it has gone by fast. Russ Conway hired me. I used to work at the Loft. I was at Merrimack College grad. Got out, and as we know, we got a connection with a good friend. We got out in '83, and that's when I started. Literally, I was supposed to have a job full time with the Mass Department of Revenue, economics major, and the Friday before I was supposed to start on a Monday in June, it got. Job was eliminated. Wow. So I stayed at the Loft, basically worked full-time restaurant, bartending a little bit, working the door, washing dishes, doing everything. And that's where I met Russ Conway for the previous 2 years. He asked me to cover a high school football game.
Jumped on it.
And I mentioned the story. My first story was September 11th, 1983. That was the same day Jacoby Ellsbury was born. And the only reason why I know that is 2007, fast forward to the ALCS, they were out in Cleveland, and he was a rookie on that team. And I look up at the score, and they have the dates of their birthday. They put it up and this is in Cleveland. And I go, that date, September 11, 1983, looks familiar. Forget September 11th in 2001. But so I just stuck with me that the date. So 2 days, I fly home for the series back in Boston, and I go on my desk, and I saved my first story. I put it up. It was horrible, by the way. It was Pentucket North Andover High School football game.
Yeah.
I have it on and at the date. So I always looked at the date without really seeing it, September 11th, 1983. So I ran into him and said, hey, we're connected. You know, when you were born, I started writing in this business. He goes, whoa, really?
That's funny.
And so now he's 40. He's going to turn, well, no, he's 42, sorry, because I started, that was part-time, 83. So, yeah, it's been a good run, and I got a little more left, I think.
Baseball numbers, man, crazy, huh?
It's crazy. It really is.
A little more left. Are you gonna? That was actually gonna be one of my final questions here. I remember. I think it was Will McDonough who, he retired, but he couldn't actually retire. He had to he was covering tennis till the very end, and he was doing. It was just seemed like that was just such a part of life. That is that you think?
Yeah, it's hard. I will say it's hard. There is ego.
Yeah.
You know, you run into people, they quote unquote will bother you per se, but then when you're not being bothered, you sort of, hey, that guy didn't ask me the score. He used to always ask me, what do I think?
Yeah.
And I do like talk. I'm a people guy. I got a coffee shop in the morning I go to. Mm-hmm. I run into about 40, 50 people in and out. I know most of the faces. I got 3 or 4 guys we sit with, have a coffee from 7:30 to 8 a.m. at Perfecto's in North Andover at the Butcher Boy Plaza. Best coffee around.
Oh, wow.
And it's just become a habit. I get up. My wife says, "Where are you going?" I'm going to the shop. I'll be back, and I bring her back something. She hasn't. I've basically served her coffee for 40 years.
You're a routine-oriented man.
Sorry, 30 years since it opened. But I enjoy what I do. I enjoy people, and I do enjoy the interaction. And so back to why we're here, the Devers trade. I'm not saying we were in a little lull, but I was like, I said to my wife, I go, I got something happened today. I just nonstop, and I was at the game.
Yeah.
I was at that game, the afternoon game with the Yankees. Big 3-game sweep.
Yeah.
Pitching's good.
Place was electric.
It's been electric a couple of times, and that's why the trade looked. Why screw around? Well, I think the trade was supposed to happen a little earlier.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the 5-game winning streak, but. It was electric in there, and I was there, and I'd already written the story. I'd written the story about the 3 kids. They hadn't done a lot, the prospects, but they've added life. Like, you can feel something positive happening. That was my story on the sweep. And then the trade happens. Bang. I had to write a killer trade. And my story in the trade was, long-term, this is going to be good for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Short-term, they got a lot to figure out. Lo and behold, they have a nice win last night. 2-0. I stayed up for it.
They do keep winning, don't they?
There's a vibe going. And look, Bregman hasn't played in 3 weeks. And I think he's the key to everything here. I think, people say, Bregman's got the opt-out. I think Bregman is, and Crochet basically said it, and I even think Bueller said the same thing. No, we're fine. They don't have to explain anything to us, the ownership. We understand. They were there.
Yeah.
They were around the drama, and I think they're tired of the drama. Let's just play baseball. And you know what? It's the kids. Are they all ready to ascend to big roles? No. I bring up Anthony Volpe, who my son is very close with. Played with him in AA. The Yankees put Volpe in. He was 1 prospect, and he batted 9th. This is 3 prospects. So putting 3 prospects and having to depend on them as rookies, that's going to be hard. So they got to figure that one out. I don't know if all 3 are going to stay. The Roman Anthony, big home run off of a Cy Young candidate, gives them a 2-0 lead, and they hold on. The pitching's been great. That's really the key here over the run here. Pitching and some decent clutch hitting. But there's something brewing at Fenway, and that's why I believed that the Devers trade isn't going to kill them. I think eventually it's going to help them.
Final question. More likely, we're halfway through the Red Sox season almost. Well, not halfway, but we're getting there. Red Sox or Patriots more likely to make the playoffs?
Wow. Okay. So I don't want to be Mr. Positive, pom-poms kind of guy, but I think they're both going to make the playoffs.
Wow. Okay.
There's something. So Mike Vrabel, I could come in here. We could talk for a half hour anytime on Vrabel. Maybe we will before the football season. Because I wrote this a week ago. There's been like 12 dates this offseason, starting when he was signed, I think January 12th, when they brought him on as head coach. But mini camp, free agent signings over a week and a half period. Then you have the Diggs issue.
Yeah.
Vrabel has handled everything swimmingly.
Yeah.
The drama on this team, because I was thinking that was going to be a problem, and people were talking about would they release Diggs. I was thinking that's a possibility, but they sort of need if they're going to be a 10-7, a 9-8 team, which I think they could be. Mm-hmm. I go with the defense. Some of the their defensive line's better, their linebacking core is better, and the defensive backfield's better. Forget Diggs and the quarterback Drake May. So I'm Mike Vrabel,
right.
A+ signing.
Big proponent. All right. So we'll circle back and see if you're right here at the end. We'll talk to you.
When I say make the playoffs, I'm talking scrape their way into the beginning. I'm not talking Stanley Cups or championships or NFL Super Bowls.
I hear you.
All right.
All right, Bill Burt. That was awesome, man. Executive sports editor at the Eagle Tribune. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Congrats on 40 years. That is a big milestone.
Thank you, Drew. I appreciate
I'm glad that you told me about that, because that is a fantastic thing. Go read all these great articles he's been doing too. The Marchand and Bork one's great. Maybe read it before the hockey game tonight.
Might have a little breaking story on the Devers trade. Some interesting background to the Devers trade. So I'm still working my way through that.
We'll be watching for that as well. Always a wealth of information, Bill Burt. Thank you, sir. Have a great summer. We'll see you before football season. All right?
We'll see you soon. We'll talk Vrabel.
There you go. Bill Burt, thank you to May Power, the producer. Always great. Sarah Hayden, the boss, our small but mighty team here in Newburyport. We love you. Live at Drew's house. See you next time. Peace.